Most men will never find out the real reason their partner stopped reaching for them first. They will tell themselves it is age. They will tell themselves it is stressful. They will tell themselves it is simply what happens between two people who have been together long enough that the fire does not go out. It just settles, that this is normal, that this is fine. But here is what I have learned after 12 years of sitting across from men in a clinical room having the conversation most people never have out loud. It is not age. It is not stressful. It is not the passage of time. It is one mistake made at one specific moment. And approximately 80% of men are making it every single time. Not because they do not care, but because nobody ever told them what that moment actually requires. I had a patient, I will call him David, 61 years old, retired engineer, the kind of man who fixed everything. Leaky pipes, broken engines, anything mechanical, David had the answer. He came into my office not because of a medical problem. He sat down, looked at his hands for a moment, and said quietly, like he was confessing something, "Doctor, I think she has stopped wanting me, and I do not know what I did wrong." David had not done anything wrong. David had never been taught what right looked like. And if something about those words just landed somewhere quiet inside you, if you recognize something in David's voice that sounds a little like your own, I need you to stay with me today. Because what I'm about to share with you is what I told David. And 6 weeks later, he came back into my office a different man. Before I go further, my name is Dr. Narita. I am a board-certified urologist with 12 years of clinical experience, 12 years of real patients, real conversations, and real solutions for men who deserved better answers than they were getting. If this channel is new to you, subscribe right now because the conversations we have here are the ones most doctors are too rushed to have. And drop a comment below and tell me where in the world you are watching from. I want to know who is in this room with me today. Now let us talk about what David was missing and what you can start doing differently tonight. Why most men get this wrong. The female body and the male body do not speak the same language when it comes to intimacy. And I do not mean that emotionally, I mean that neurologically, physiologically, at the level of the nervous system itself. And a man's arousal pathway is fast. It responds to physical stimuli almost immediately. It is designed for urgency. A woman's arousal pathway is the opposite. It is sequential. It is neurological before it is physical. And it requires a specific set of conditions to unfold completely. Conditions that when they are present produce an experience neither partner forgets, and when they are absent produce an experience that slowly, quietly erodes the connection between two people who genuinely love each other. Here is what those conditions look like at the biological level. And I want you to understand this because once you do, the technique will make complete sense. When a woman feels emotionally and physically safe in an intimate moment, her parasympathetic nervous system activates. Blood flow increases to the pelvic region. Natural lubrication begins. And the clitoris, which contains approximately 8,000 nerve endings, more than any other structure in the human body of its size, begins to engorge with blood and become extraordinarily sensitive to sensation. This process takes time. On average, the female body needs between 15 and 20 minutes of intentional, present, attentive engagement before it reaches what I call the threshold of full readiness. Now, I want you to be honest with yourself for just one moment. Are you giving her 15 to 20 minutes, or are you giving her 5 and then wondering quietly why the experience never quite reaches what you both remember it could be? That gap between what her body requires and what it is receiving is not a failure of desire. It is a failure of sequencing. And sequencing is something every man in this room can learn. So let me teach you exactly how the 3 exact method I gave David. What I am about to walk you through is something I have been refining with patients for years. I call it the 3-phase resonance method. And the reason I use the word resonance is intentional because what you are trying to create is not just physical contact. It is synchronization, 2 bodies finding the same frequency. And like any kind of resonance, it requires patience, precision, and a willingness to listen before you lead. There are 3 phases, and I need you to understand all 3 because skipping any one of them is exactly how David ended up sitting in my office staring at his hands. Phase 1, the awakening. The first phase is what I call the awakening. This is the phase that almost no one talks about and almost every man rushes past. The awakening is everything that happens in the first 5 minutes, and it is the most important 5 minutes of the entire experience. Here is what I want you to picture. Imagine you have been given tickets to a live performance of your favorite piece of music. You arrive at the concert hall, the musicians are on stage, and before a single note is played, they spend time tuning their instruments quietly, carefully, each string and key brought into alignment with the others. You could skip the tuning, the musicians could walk out and begin playing immediately, but you would hear it something slightly off, something that never quite resolves into what it could have been. The awakening is the tuning. During this phase, your only job is to make your partner feel noticed, not consumed. There is a difference that matters enormously. Noticing means you are paying attention to her breath, her response, the way her body communicates with yours. You are not moving toward a destination. You are present in the place you already are. At the physiological level, this is when lubrication begins. This is when her nerve endings start their sequence of activation. Skipping this phase does not just diminish her pleasure. It causes genuine physical discomfort. Tissue that has not been adequately prepared experiences friction as pain rather than pleasure. I see the clinical consequences of this more often than people realize. Women who experience recurring discomfort during intimacy and cannot identify the source. Partners who begin to pull away without being able to articulate why. The source is almost always the same, a phase that was skipped because no one explained why it existed. Give her the awakening, minimum 5 minutes. Go slower than feels natural to you. Breathe. Be in the room completely. This phase does not belong to you. It belongs to her. And when you give it to her fully, what you receive in return will make every second worth it. Phase 2, the ascent. Now here is where most men make their second mistake. And this one is more subtle than the first, which is exactly why it is so damaging. As your partner begins to respond, as her breathing deepens and her body starts moving toward yours, every instinct you have will tell you to accelerate. She is responding more. She is more present. She is more engaged. So the natural impulse is to match that energy and push toward the finish line while the momentum is there. That impulse is wrong. And understanding why it is wrong is what separates the men who consistently satisfy their partners from the men who consistently leave them somewhere just short of where they need to go. What this second phase requires is not speed. It is a contrast. I call this phase the ascent, and it is built entirely on one principle. The brain experiences pleasure most sharply at the moment of contrast, not at the moment of constant escalation. Deep movement, followed by shallow movement. Moments of complete stillness, followed by slow, resumed rhythm. Intensity, followed by gentleness. The pause before the note is what gives the note its power. The breath before the word is what makes the word land. This is not instinct. This is neurological precision, and it is something you can practice until it becomes as natural as breathing. The ascent can last between 5 and 15 minutes depending on your partner, on the day, on what she has carried into that moment with her. And during this phase, I want to give you one specific tool, something that requires nothing, costs nothing, and works the very first time you use it. Your breath, when you breathe in short, shallow bursts during intimacy, your sympathetic nervous system activates, heart rate climbs, adrenaline rises. Your body interprets these signals as urgency, and your ejaculatory response follows that urgency, whether you intend it to or not. This is the physiological mechanism behind losing control too soon. It is not a failure of willpower. It is a nervous system responding exactly as it was designed to respond to the signals it is receiving. The correction is precise. Inhale slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 2 seconds. Exhale gently through your mouth for 6 seconds. Do this the moment you feel the pace accelerating beyond your intention. Within 30 seconds, this breath pattern activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for calm presence and sustained control. Your heart rate drops, the urgency eases, and you return to being the one directing the experience rather than being carried away by it. I have recommended this protocol to patients for years. The response is always the same. It works, it is free, It requires no prescription, no supplement, no device. And unlike anything you might find advertised online at 3 in the morning, it has no side effects except a better experience for both of you. Control the breath. You control the moment, you lead the ascent rather than being led by it. Phase 3, the resonance. Now we arrive at the third phase. And this one I want you to understand differently from the first two, because this phase is not something you do. It is something that happens when you have done the first two correctly. I call it the resonance. This is the phase most people think of as the goal. But here's the truth. If the awakening and the ascent have been honored fully, phase 3 does not require effort. It arrives for both of you at the same time in a way that is completely unmistakable. During resonance, the rhythm you have built together intensifies naturally. Her body guides you through movement, through sound, through the way she responds to each variation in tempo. You are not performing at this stage. You are listening with your entire body and responding to what you hear. You are not chasing anything. You are arriving somewhere together. And here is what I need every man in this room to understand about what happens emotionally during this phase. When a woman has been brought to this point through patience and full attention, when she has experienced the awakening and the ascent with a partner who was completely present for both, what she feels during resonance is not just physical pleasure. She feels valued, she feels seen, she feels chosen. Not because of anything you said, because of what your presence communicated without a single word. That feeling does not end when the experience ends. It becomes a memory her body carries forward. It becomes the reason she reaches for you first. It becomes the invisible thread of connection that holds strong through everything else life brings. The stress, the years, the ordinary days that quietly add up into a life built together. That is what David rediscovered. Not a technique, a connection he thought was gone. The technique was simply the door that let him back in. What about lasting longer? Now, I want to address something I know is forming in the back of your mind right now because I hear it from patients in almost every consultation. Dr. Narita, what about lasting long enough to go through all three phases? What if control has always been a struggle for me? Here is my honest clinical answer. Duration without technique is far less powerful than most men believe. I have sat across from men who were convinced that lasting longer was the complete solution, and they were genuinely surprised when I told them that 20 minutes of present, sequenced, rhythmically aware intimacy will produce a more complete experience for a woman than an hour of mechanical repetition without structure. Technique is the primary variable. Duration supports it, but technique comes first always. That said, if you are experiencing persistent difficulty with ejaculatory control that does not respond to the breathing protocol and rhythm adjustment, that is a conversation worth having directly with a urologist. Factors including blood pressure, testosterone levels, vascular health, and chronic stress can all affect ejaculatory function, and there are highly effective medical solutions available today. There is no shame in that appointment. Your sexual health is part of your overall health. It deserves the same attention and the same honesty you would bring to any other medical concern. But for the majority of men watching this right now, the three-phase resonance method practiced with intention and patience is the answer you have been looking for. And as of this moment, you have it completely. So, let me bring this home. You showed up today, and I want you to understand what that means. Most men never seek this information. They carry the uncertainty in silence. They watch the distance grow in their relationship and tell themselves it is inevitable, a consequence of age, of time, of life, doing what life does. They grieve something quietly without ever trying to get it back. You did something different. You asked the question, you stayed for the answer. That already makes you different from the man who never will. I had a patient. You already know him. David, 61 years old, retired engineer. The man who could fix anything except the one thing he was most afraid to look at directly. He came into my office defeated. He left with a method, a breath protocol, and something more important than either of those things. He left with the understanding that what he thought was gone had never actually left. It had simply been waiting for him to learn how to reach for it again. 6 weeks later, he walked back through my door. He did not say much. He did not need to. The way he carried himself said everything. That is what is available to you, not just a better experience in one moment. A restored connection that compounds over time. A relationship that deepens rather than fades. A version of yourself that your partner remembers choosing and keeps choosing. Age does not take this from you. Inattention does. And attention as of today is something you have chosen to bring back. If this conversation gave you something real, a moment of recognition, a technique you will actually use tonight, or simply the feeling that someone finally spoke to you honestly about something that matters, please give this video a like. It takes 1 second, and it helps this conversation reach the men who need it most. Share it with someone in your life who would benefit from hearing it. And if you are not yet part of this community, subscribe now, because every week I bring you the kind of honest, clinical, human conversation about men's health that 12 years in this field has taught me most men desperately need and almost never receive. I am Dr. Narita, and the most important thing I want you to carry out of this video today is not the technique. It is this. You are not David sitting in my office staring at his hands. You are David 6 weeks later walking back through that door with something restored, something that was always yours, something that was simply waiting for you to learn how to reach for it again. Go be that man tonight.